Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to this Ekadashi series, Happy Ekadashi. We're exploring the 26 qualities of a perfect gentleman, Srila Prabhupada, and seeing how those qualities can inspire us to also follow in his footsteps and deepen our affection and our relationship with Srila Prabhupada. So today, I welcome our gracious host, Siddhanta Prabhu, who is leading us through these qualities. And we're going to be exploring the quality of being mild today, correct?
Yes, quality number 7 is that a Vaishnava, a perfect gentleman, is mild. And again, I went to the dictionary so we can hone in, what does that really mean? And according to Webster's dictionary, there's 2 words here, and these 2 words will fit, hopefully, the anecdotes of the stories I've selected for today. And the definition is gentle or not easily provoked. Not easily provoked, or gentle, those 2 that we'll focus on today. So I think that I've selected some stories that will give evidence to that quality of Srila Prabhupada. Burijan has a great story regarding Prabhupada being mild. Kumkum Devi Dasi, I'm not sure a lot of devotees know who she is, but she's joined 1971, early days. Kedar Prabhu, who is currently serving in Maui, has a temple there. Nikunja Vasini Devi Dasi, a lot of devotees here in America may not know her. And then we'll end up with a classic story from Guru Kripa Prabhu. Okay. So that's the lineup for today. So everyone stay tuned and take notes. Try to remember the stories that you hear today, because our memories generally are Kali Yuga memories. So write them down, repeat them, and then you'll remember them. These are great examples of Prabhupada being mild. So we'll talk about Burijan's story on the other side. So let's listen to Burijan Prabhu.
In 1972, when Srila Prabhupada came to Tokyo, Sudama, who was in charge, he arranged a program for Prabhupada in Kobe. Kobe had a large Indian community at that time, and there was talk of them possibly donating a temple for us, some land or something for a temple. So we went down there, and Prabhupada was very humble on the way down. He had put his feet up on the chair in front of him where Banu had been sitting, and the conductor and Banu were standing up. So the conductor came by, because it's the Shinkansen, the bullet train that goes so fast. And the conductor said, you can't stand to Banu, so he had to sit down. So I was in the awkward position of having to ask Prabhupada to move his feet. And so Banu could sit down. So I said to Prabhupada, the conductor says that Banu has to sit down. Could you move your lotus feet? And Prabhupada said, so the lotus-like devotee can sit down. So it was very sweet. And then when we got there, there was this program arranged, and somehow or another, there was a program arranged for the Hindu community there and there were quite a few hundred people, all families. But on the same program, a Mayavadi was speaking. So since they were mostly Sindhis, they have the Punjabi habit of reading from the Guru Granth Sahib. They had a hall that was their hall, and whoever reads from the book, which is the basic Sikh book, sits on this asana. So we told the man in charge, we suggested to him that Prabhupada should sit on this asana. And he said, no, this is for who reads the Guru Granth. And we said, no, Prabhupada is so famous, let him sit there. So he agreed. So the Mayavadi sannyasi came in, and and we had asked the head of the Hindu Association to give us money for a garland, a nice garland for Prabhupada. So he said, yes, you can have money for the garland for Prabhupada, but you also have to make a garland for the Mayavadi sannyasi too. So we said yes, 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 yes. And we ended up making one big garland for Prabhupada, and we gave the Mayavadi sannyasi Prabhupada's prasadam garland from the day before. And of course, the etiquette is he had to accept it, so he just went like this. So when it came time for Prabhupada to speak, we invited Prabhupada to sit on the asana, and with the Guru Granth, which was a Vyasasana, with Prabhupada sitting on it. And then Prabhupada began to speak. First he had us recite verses from the Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada spoke in English. And he had us lead kirtan, and Prabhupada spoke in English. And he spoke for perhaps a half hour or 40 minutes. And of course, what would Prabhupada speak about? He spoke against Mayavad philosophy. And then it was when it was the time for Prabhupada had ended his talk, so it came time for the Mayavadi to speak. So the head of the Hindu society brought the Mayavadi over, and Prabhupada was still sitting on the Vyasasana, and he put up his hand to help Prabhupada get down from the Vyasasana, and so that the Mayavadi could sit there. He was dressed in saffron, big beard, and Prabhupada refused to get down from the Vyasasana. He wouldn't get down. He just didn't acknowledge that he was supposed to get down. So what could they do? And the Mayavadi, of course, was Shanti, Shanti. So he just sat down in his seat, and they brought the microphone over there. So he began speaking in Hindi, and we couldn't understand. There was about 6 or 8 of us there, and we couldn't understand what he was saying. But Prabhupada just sat very gravely on the Vyasasana, and he chanted, and he was just sort of rocking back and forth, chanting on his beads. And we just imitated Prabhupada, so we just sat there in front of Prabhupada, and we rocked back and forth and chanted on our beads. So the Mayavadi spoke for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, all in Hindi, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and Prabhupada the whole time was just chanting on his beads. And then suddenly, after about a half hour, Prabhupada turns to us. He actually looked directly at me and said, "Stop him." He turned to us. And the Mayavadi was speaking, strongly, and he was fired up, and Prabhupada just looked at us and said, "Stop him." And we didn't know what in the world to do. So then Prabhupada said, "Start kirtan." So in the middle of his lecture, we jumped up and started playing kartals and chanting, jumping up and down and chanting. And we had no idea what was going on because the Mayavadi had been speaking in Hindi. So after the Mayavadi ended his speech, Prabhupada got down from the Vyasasana, and Banu was acting as his servant, so he took him back to the apartment where he was staying. And we stayed around to distribute some books. And then we had no idea what had happened, why Prabhupada had tolerated his speaking or listened to his speaking for a half hour, and then suddenly said, "Stop him." So when we finally got back to Prabhupada's apartment, Prabhupada was sitting behind a low desk, and Banu had brought him his hot milk for the night. And then there was a desk lamp and it was this low light. It was just so dramatic. And we still didn't know what had happened. So we came in and offered our obeisances, and we asked Prabhupada what had happened. And Prabhupada said, first he was speaking all right. But then he started explaining Panchupasana, which means 5 different gradations of demigod worship. Ganesh, Durga, Shiva, Lakshmi Devi, Shiva, and Vishnu. So he started explaining that, Prabhupada said. And then he said, above Vishnu, there is Brahman. And when he said that, this is Prabhupada speaking, and when he said that, I could not tolerate it. It it wasn't even like a fanatical thing or a philosophical thing. He just said I couldn't tolerate it, and the way he said it, it just reminded us of Siddhanta Vrantaharana. His Guru Maharaj was opposed to anything against the Siddhanta. It was unique, and it was heartfelt, and it was the actions of a lover, not a philosopher. It was so unique like that. And then Prabhupada, and he looked so satisfied. He wasn't in anxiety, he wasn't angry, he was just sitting there. And the only way I could describe it was after a cat has caught a mouse. He was almost like purring. He was so happy. And then he said, I am like a lion when I'm out and like a lamb at home.
Hare Krishna. So yeah, now you're have the both qualities there, the lion and the lamb, the mildness and the strength. Yeah.
Again, mild meaning gentle and not easily provoked. So he was not provoked. It took him 30 minutes before he got
It took him 30
provoked.
minutes. Yes. Yeah. That's
To
yeah,
get
okay.
provoked.
That's yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
mild enough where he wasn't yelling and shouting and debating the guy. He's the mild
Kirtan.
the mild process to defeat that is kirtan. So not easily provoked.
Yeah, you can see there was no anger. You know, in the more the conditioned souls, you know, the response to provocation is that they become angry, and you know, Srila Prabhupada just felt pain, and to hear Krishna's being demeaned in that way, so he had to do something
Right.
on Krishna's behalf.
Exactly. So now let's hear from Kumkum Devi Dasi. I met her in 1971 in Dallas, Texas,
Okay.
and she was married to Rishabh Dev. And we'll talk about her story and this quality of being mild or not easily provoked, gentle, also with this gentleman. So let's listen to Kumkum Devi Dasi.
Then the first time I actually got to see him was in Atlanta, where I had moved soon after reading that Back to Godhead. And he was only going to have a short layover in the Atlanta airport, maybe 2 hours, and so we didn't try to bring him to the temple, but the temple president, who was Balavanta Prabhu, and his wife Balavi, and Tara Dasi and Jamanjaya came up from Tallahassee, and we rented a VIP room at the airport, and I got to make a cushion for him because we didn't want him to have to sit directly on the, who knows how clean they were, the seats. And so I was very excited about that. And then when he finally came, I was just completely satisfied. This was just to catch a glimpse of him was the satisfaction of everything that I had hoped, but far more so. And so there were a few people that we had told he was coming, and as many people as could crowd into this one room, and some guests. And one of the most important things that I remember from that talk was there was an Indian man there who was not coming to the temple, but somehow the temple had figured out how to reach out to him and brought him to have darshan with Srila Prabhupada. But he was a scientist, and so Prabhupada was talking with him, just chatting, and he asked the man what kind of science, and he says, we do experimentation on animals. And I noticed that Prabhupada was very unplussed. He was just completely composed, and he said, what animals? And the man said, oh, cats mainly. And again, Prabhupada was just as cool as you could imagine, and he said, all the animals don't get a chance? And I could tell how he was very sarcastic, and I had never seen this in such a exalted person. I had never known that sarcasm could still be helpful to somebody. And you could see in the man, it just really helped him to be a little contemplative at least. This was amazing to me.
Yes, not easily, this definition of being not easily provoked is certainly very exemplified in this.
Yeah. You know, Prabhupada had that wit or that sarcasm to get a preaching point across. And the man understood what he was doing, I think, according to Kumkum, you know, contemplative.
I mean, we can see how he could have been quite harsh in his response, but he was gentle.
Exactly.
Dealing with him, knowing where he was, you know, not reacting in a harsh way. Yeah.
And saying it with just a few words. All animals don't get a chance. So it's to the point, gentle, but to the point, and cutting in his preaching. So we thank Kumkum for that. This next story will be from Kedar Prabhu. He joined in New Zealand when he was like 16 years old. We'll talk about his anecdote about Prabhupada's gentle preaching, actually. So let's listen to Kedar Prabhu.
One of the things that I think was very significant was at the time we were experiencing, there was, I would say, how would you say, kind of a differences of opinions between God brothers. And I actually followed Srila Prabhupada to Australia at that time, I remember. Now, it was a long time ago. And I remember being on the morning walk with Srila Prabhupada. And he said, all the sannyasis were there, and there was this whole conversation about in the temple, outside of the temple. Whether you could actually be Krishna-conscious living outside the temple. I was still at school, actually. So I was outside the temple, but I was coming to the temple on a regular basis, chanting rounds, and had received initiation. So this controversy took place, and all the sannyasis were saying, no, no, you cannot. You have to move into the temple. You have to shave your head. You have to do all of these things. My parents, they weren't that cool on me shaving my head. And when I did, they were pretty nice about it. They said, my mother was like, oh, your curls, you lost your curls. I said, don't worry, Mom, it's going to grow back. So I had the courage on the morning walk. I think it was Madhavisa was there, and I had the courage to step up for a moment there. And I said to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, there's so many devotees saying that living inside the temple, or that you cannot live outside the temple, that you must live inside the temple. And this has created a little confusion for me. So he stopped in that moment, and in front of all of the sannyasis, he looked at me and he said, inside the temple, outside the temple, always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna, and your life will be sublime. That was one of the moments that I had, first moments that I had with Srila Prabhupada.
I love that. That's such a good example, I think, of that gentle quality of just giving the softly, illuminated and enlightened shelter that he could give you. Yes.
Yeah.
You just fall into it,
He diffused that obvious heavy situation
Yeah.
between them, us versus them type of consciousness amongst devotees, some controversy, and in such a gentle way. So I thought it's applicable to our life today, and in our own preaching, we should develop that and take that within to when preaching to someone who can't live in the temple for some reason, and preach to them. That's okay. So always remember Krishna and never forget him. That's the principle. The next story will be from Nikunjavasini Devi Dasi. She speaks with a little accent. I haven't subtitled her, but I think she speaks clearly enough with as she speaks English. I think she's Dutch. I think she's from maybe Amsterdam. But this particular story hopefully will solve a controversy that is actually I've seen nowadays going on Facebook and this place and that place about the particular actions of a lady Vaishnava. How are the ladies supposed to behave? We'll talk about that on the other side. This might be new for you. So listen to this one. This one's a unique one.
That same year, 74, I was married. I got Brahmin initiation because that was, Prabhupada actually stopped us from taking Brahmin initiation too soon. They had written a recommendation letter to Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, you are going too fast. So that was probably October. We had to do a Brahmin test. There was 10 questions, what the significance of the Guru. And then instead of being initiated second in October, it was November. So then we got Brahmin initiation. And then we went in 76, we went to meet Srila Prabhupada again. And there was another wonderful realization for me after Srila Prabhupada installed the Krishna Balaram deities in New Mayapur. Because it was like this, everyone was always visiting all the temples. Whenever Prabhupada would be in Europe, he'd be in France. All the devotees from Europe went to France. And at that time, Srila Prabhupada had been quite sick. But because Bhagavan was really begging to please Prabhupada, you come, we have the deities to be installed. And so Prabhupada came, and there was three incidences. One was an amazing experience when Prabhupada was bathing the deities, Krishna and Balaram. And there might be a picture of this, but it's not a very, very well-known picture. Srila Prabhupada was first bathed with the big conch shells. He would bathe Lord Balaram, and then we had to bathe, and they were all about the same size. So they are like 3 instead of 2, Krishna and Balaram and Srila Prabhupada. So like friends. And then when Prabhupada had to bathe Krishna, he had to lean forward to bathe Krishna in front of Balaram, and he put his hand on Balaram's shoulder and then bathe Krishna like this. So when I saw this, I said, wow, this is spiritual world. They're the 3 friends together, Krishna, Balaram and Srila Prabhupada. Then a little later we had the big feast. Well, first we had the initiation again, 76, and then I had one friend. She said, oh, how am I supposed to do? I said, you pay dandavats like this, and you say all these things, because I just had it myself. She said, are you sure? Because in those days we were not doing dandavats anymore. It wasn't allowed. I said, I'm sure I did it. You should do it. And when she did that, actually, I was looking at Prabhupada while she was paying her full dandavats in front of Prabhupada. And Prabhupada had this big smile on his face, and there was a picture made of that. So when she got up, I said, Prabhupada was very pleased.
Oh, yes, that is a interesting. That like you said, there's been some, and there are visuals and there are audio to show that Srila Prabhupada accepted the full prostrations of his lady disciples,
Right?
And to be happy with it. So
yeah, gentle and accepting.
Yeah. Very accepting.
That's another mild character that Prabhupada was accepting of that love and surrender by a lady, full dandavats. It's evidence. So hopefully we'll end the controversy. I don't know, but maybe not.
Anyway,
yeah,
different places.
Different strokes for different folks, maybe. But all right, so let's finish our session today with a story from Guru Kripa Prabhu. Again, mild. I'll give a little preview. We spoke once before about Prabhupada showing two sides, a thunderbolt and then soft as a rose type of qualities. So this has both of those sides to Prabhupada, but we'll focus on the mild side towards the end of his story. So let's talk about that afterwards and listen now to Guru Kripa Prabhu.
One time he came and they sent the servant, 12:30 in the night, to where I was sleeping in Hawaii. And they woke me and said, Srila Prabhupada wants to talk with you. So I went in there, sat down, 12:30. And he excused the servant. We were sitting alone. I said, yes, Srila Prabhupada. And personally, I thought I was doing good. I was sleeping 5 hours a day, getting up, serving, organizing, doing my job. So what are you doing? I said, I'm taking rest. Why? Because I'm tired. Why are you tired? I said, I'm sitting here translating books. I've only had 1.5 hours. That is enough. Why you cannot sit with me and translate? I said, well, but you're a Paramahamsa. I'm a beginner. Why you're not a Paramahamsa? Then I became very frustrated, and then I began to get angry, Personally, why am I getting this? What did I do? Usually you need a reason to get yelled at. And so then I said, and then I just said, I'm just a nonsense. He said, why are you a nonsense? And I was trapped. My face turned flush and blue practically. And then I saw that I was angry. And then I also saw what I will do. Now I've become angry at Prabhupada, what I can do. He's a person, you're a person. People thought it was so easy to be around His divine grace. I laugh, I scoff. Many people, they think, oh, Prabhupada, you kept 5 feet from him, And then he got me in the corner. He had me like that, and then nothing to do. I just start to cry. That's all. Just start to cry. I sat there. I was defeated. And then he hugged me, told me one story and sent me to bed like a kid. Told me a story of Krishna, like from the Krishna book. I said, now go take rest.
Hare Krishna. So that's an interesting example to choose for mildness. It would seem to be the other side of being strong but
well, the mildness comes when the thunderbolt was, first of all, when Prabhupada was setting the standard, like, why can't you work with me? Why are you not a Paramahamsa? And then the end of that story.
Are you a nonsense?
Yeah. But the end of that situation, confrontation with Guru Kripa, he read him a story, hugged him or pat him on the back and sent him to bed. So that's the soft as the rose.
And also, as Guru Kripa pointed out, that he only, the metaphor of spice came to my mind. When you go, do you want super hot or mild? In terms of the spiciness. So the amount of spice that Srila Prabhupada would put into his relationship with you, depended on your ability to digest it, to take it. And for some, like Guru Kripa was able to have that relationship where he could take the stronger sauce, but when Srila Prabhupada saw, oh, this is maybe a bit too much here, he brought it all down, very gently, made it mild.
Right. Gentle, right. So with that, I thank you for engaging me, and the listeners. Hopefully we will have given them some thoughts to inspire them.
Ekadashi with this Srila Prabhupada.
Right.
And thank you to our audience to join us. Please make sure to share with all of your friends and associates as well. Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Jai Shri.